Hello. Welcome to Season 8 of The Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. In each episode, we both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about what we liked, what we hated, if we were scared, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season, our theme is Make the Wives Pick. Since our wives have to watch these movies with us every week, and often complain about it, we made them pick the movies this season. If you want to see the list of upcoming films and follow along, check out our website at thehorrific.com. Thanks for listening. So I know we've both seen this one before, but it's always kind of nice to go back and revisit some of these movies that we've seen, like, over the course of our lives. Mm-hmm. But with this new perspective of like needing to take notes and be ready to do an episode about it.
Yeah.
And actually going back and rewatching Jeepers Creepers, because this was the first time, probably 5 or 6 years for me that I saw it. And it really reminded me of a lot of things that you've said in the past about what you want from horror movies. Because you're like, give me a guy with a knife who can't die and I'm happy, or I love it when they create a new villain, or, you know, like, don't get too artistic, just give me a straight horror movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like this week you got that.
I did. I was pretty happy about it.
Yeah. This one held up pretty well for me. I was a little worried going back to it, like, from a more critical perspective, I guess. But I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's just nice to have a movie that's what it's made for. It's made to be a horror movie, and that's what they tried to make, and, you know, as original as possible. And it's okay that, in my opinion, some of the cliche things that happen, it's okay because, like, what they're trying to accomplish overall is, you know, pretty sweet. They don't have any ulterior motives. It doesn't seem. It's just, you know.
Yeah.
Let's just make a horror.
Yeah. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do too.
So. Anyway, I will do the introduction, then you can do your fun facts, and then we will get into it. And I basically want to pick up the discussion right there exactly with what you just said about it doing what it was intended to do. So don't let me forget to come back to that.
That's great.
In 2001, United Artists and MGM Distribution Company brought us Jeepers Creepers. This movie tells the story of two siblings, played by Gina Phillips and Justin Long, who are driving home from college to see their parents in Florida. Along the way, though, they see a large man dumping what appears to be a dead body into a pipe near an abandoned building. Instead of just driving and finding the nearest police station, they go back to investigate, and typical horror movie things ensue. Jeepers Creepers was made on a budget of about $10 million and brought in almost $60 million at the box office. It can currently be streamed on HBO Max.
Hell yeah. So, here's a fact about this.
Okay.
This movie kind of, so I'm not getting to say it's 100% based on a true story. However, it was inspired by a situation that happened. And it actually appeared on Unsolved Mysteries, for the record.
Oh,
but it was a case with Dennis Depew. He's a Michigan man. He allegedly killed his wife and dumped her body behind like an abandoned school. And someone like drove by and witnessed it. They witnessed what they thought looked like someone was dumping a body, and that's eventually, I think, how he got caught, which I thought was interesting. And I probably have seen that Unsolved Mystery episode.
So, backing that up just slightly, so you're saying that the person drove by, saw someone dumping a body, and then contacted the police?
Yep.
As opposed to stopped, argued with their sister for a while, then turned the car around and went back to place themselves also in peril and unable to reach the police.
Yeah, they went the unadventurous route.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's why they didn't get a movie.
Right. That's why they didn't go for the full story. So Long and Phillips, who play the brother and sister in this, were supposed to be playing college students. Long was 22 at the time, and Phillips was 30. Which we'll get into with Jeepers Creepers 2, but more believable, I think, that they were college students. At least they weren't high school students, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
So here's something I thought was kind of funny. The Jeepers Creepers van, the van that, the monster drove, the exhaust system didn't work on it. And the reason why I think it's funny, like they say between takes they had to open the door and smoke would come out, which I thought two things. Like, one, like that's super dangerous and not smart to do for a movie. Like, it's just not worth it.
Like you're a highly paid actor.
Right.
Driving around.
Don't breathe in, like, it. Anyway, and then the other reason is because it's like just basing it off of like bikes, like the exhaust system. Like if it's like just weld on some pipes,
Yeah, right.
It's not too bad, but maybe that truck was really hard to do. But
that half a day labor would have just put the whole schedule off. So.
Yeah, exactly. So Salva, who had like Salva is like the director, something like that.
Yeah, also the writer
and director, and he had like a Hancock style cameo in one of the sequence where it's psychic Giselle. There's a photo of a young man wearing a necktie. That was actually his high school senior photo. Oh, nice. Yeah. You can also see his head among the bodies of the victims in the Creeper House of Pain, which I think is kind of interesting. I kind of like that too, directors adding that. So the movie was actually shot in northern Florida, which I also thought was kind of funny because it's Florida and they're kind of the butt of the joke for the United States. The highway where much of the film was shot didn't appear deserted enough, so they got local homeowners to uproot their mailboxes temporarily.
Oh, that's kind of random.
Yeah, which I think is like pretty good. So basically, the director Salva weighed 400 pounds at the time, and he found the heat and humidity of Florida unbearable, which I thought was kind of funny because he had like an actor that was like covered in makeup and latex and stuff, and all that, but the heat and humidity can bring any size man down, for the record.
True.
And I think I'm going to go ahead and call it that.
All right then.
Yeah, those are my fun facts for the film.
So you were talking before about liking it when you have a movie that is just straightforward and deliberate horror.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I wrote down like 100 times in my notes for this one was pace. And I feel like this movie was paced very well from start to end. And it kept my attention, and it wasn't too long. It did what it was trying to do, and then it was finished, and it had a decent ending. And so there were not a lot of times when I was just like rolling my eyes or checking my phone.
Right.
Like it was very much, everything was kind of leading to something else, and you were finding out more. And I guess one of the things I really, really liked about it was they created a new villain, and the way that it wasn't just in your face right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like it was an interesting creature, an interesting monster, but you're sort of slowly finding more out about it as it goes along. So you don't like immediately know exactly what it's capable of or what it wants or what it's doing or if it can be defeated or anything else. Like you're sort of finding out as the characters do. And so everything about it from a pacing perspective, because I feel like that's a thing I complain about in almost every movie we watch, was done well in this one. And I appreciated that.
Yeah. I think, like I was kind of saying at the beginning, I think you have to, like some of them you have to like forgive, like for example, them going back to the church. Like you almost have to forgive it because it's like, okay, well, they go in to town, they get a cop and, the cops go out there and everything's good or whatever, it's, I don't know. You have to add it just to add that horror aspect. I mean, theoretically you could write, which is what they kind of did when they go to the police station in the film. But I mean, you have to have some of the cheesy, like car can't start freaking out moments because it's supposed to build the anticipation and because you are, like you said, you are being paced and it is trying. Like, I feel like it's forgivable. I think the movies that are terribly placed and then they add something predictable into it, that's when it becomes a little bit more difficult, to bear. But this one I think kind of got a little past. But I mean, just from the start, like you don't realize it at the time when you're watching the film, but like your introduction to the creeper is him like driving like a maniac on the road. You don't know, is this a villain, human, or what it is, or whatever the case is. But just that intense, driving part at the beginning, although it took a little bit long, and like it's like just get over to the other side of the lane and hit your brakes and let them pass you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it had to be done in some situations.
Yeah, I mean, like in the very beginning, when it's just the two of them in the car together.
Yeah.
And it's like they're both being like overly obnoxious, like on purpose. And you're just like, how much longer do I, as the viewer, have to sit here in the car with these two? Because I am about to turn this off.
Yeah.
But it's like just before it gets to the point that you would get really frustrated by it is when all of a sudden that RV turns off and you see the kind of the armored truck come like flying up in behind them, and like they don't see it. And so it kind of like grabs you in that moment. And then it really doesn't ever slow down a whole lot.
Yeah.
The story moves pretty quick from that point to the end. And, obviously not all of it is like scary or horror. There are some scenes that are just developing the story and moving things forward. But there weren't a lot of times when I was like taken out of the rhythm of the movie, I guess, which is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it just means that, because making a horror movie is sort of inherently ambitious, in my opinion, because what you're doing is saying, I am taking just normal people and I'm putting them on a screen, and you're going to watch it on your TV while you're sitting on your couch. And I want to hold your attention for the duration of this movie. And I want to make you feel negative emotions. Like, I want to, just using this medium of this thing on a screen in front of you, make you feel scared, which is the thing that you go through most of life trying not to feel.
Yeah.
And so to be able to like successfully engage and hold you for the duration of a horror movie is really hard. I mean, like, a lot of good horror movies have a lot of downtime, or they kind of, get off the rails a little bit and then have to get back on, or they just build and build and build for 90% of the movie and then finally deliver some scare at the end.
Yeah.
But when one is like developing the whole way through and still working in the horror and bringing you along on the ride, making you genuinely interested in finding out what's about to happen, that's kind of a special thing. And so, I don't think this is the best movie we've watched. I mean, I think that it had a lot of flaws, and it, wasn't super high budget or anything, so that's understandable. But I thought that just from, exactly back to what you said, as far as what was it trying to do and did it do that, like, yeah.
Yeah, I think to tie into that, I think it makes it a little bit easier too, because you have, the storyline is pretty simple, to brother and sister traveling across country, getting terrorized.
Yeah.
Relatively simple concept, when you think of it like from The Shining, like there's a lot to set up there. So that kind of helped out. And I think the other cool thing about it was I was reading about this film, and they were saying that the reason why they decided to make them brother and sister instead of like a couple was because he didn't want people focusing on like the love didn't basically want it taken away from like the horror aspect, that these are lovers, didn't want the love interest to take precedence over the actual storyline. Now, what you got instead was a brother and sister who bickered more than like I've ever experienced, and I have a brother and a sister. It was, like, I feel like if there's a time where like I feel like myself or my siblings are in danger and we were together, I don't think we'd bicker as much. Like, it would just be like,
What percentage of the dialogue in this movie do you think was, Derry, Trish, let's get out of here?
Yeah, it was probably like 80%. Yeah.
But it was just kind of like filler. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it felt like for a lot of it, there's something scary going on, and what are they going to say? Like, it's not really a time that they're talking, but you need, the interaction or whatever. So
yeah, and I think they could have, you can have fright, or you can have that like anticipation for the viewer with silence, like just complete silence. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm basing that strictly off of a Twilight Zone episode I just watched earlier, where half of it seemed like it was silence.
Yeah.
But you can get away with that, and may not have been their style, but whatever it is. But I mean, I do think that there were a few horror scenes with this that helped. Like, okay, well, the dialogue sucks. However, like, driving by, seeing this creepy guy, that you can kind of make out looks kind of human, kind of doesn't look human, throwing a body into like this, into the ground, basically.
Yeah. And
then like them driving past, and just that monster just turning around and looking like right at them. It's like, gosh, that's terrifying. Then getting in the car and like hitting the car. It's like, okay, that's like if that happened to myself and Katie, or myself and my sister or brother, like that would be super terrifying. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't really come up with a good way of explaining this, so hopefully it makes sense. But just the idea that they didn't do a lot of developing the characters. It wasn't like you got this like super detailed backstory for them or anything. You really just know that they're like brother and sister, and that they were at school and now they're coming back. But you do spend a lot of time with them over the course of the movie. And so I think it makes you feel like that horror on their behalf, just because it's almost like you see them, like, even though they bicker and fight and stuff, they're still brother and sister, and they still obviously like care a lot about each other and worry about each other. And it's almost like it's training you to relate to the characters that way too. So it's like, yeah, he's annoying, but I don't want him to die. Like, just because that's the mode that you're in through the whole movie. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, because you've talked a lot in the past about how typically horror movies will have like a smaller cast. Yeah. Because that gives you the time to like develop some sense of like empathy for specific individuals. And then when they're being like scared or terrified, like there's always at least the one that you're hoping will survive. Yeah. And that's like an effective way of engaging you with the movie. And so I thought, kind of by focusing on the two of them, even though it wasn't like we're getting their whole like childhood story, you did spend enough time with them to want them to be able to escape and survive.
Yeah, I think that's might be tied to the brother-sister thing, but yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head as far as like, it's okay, like kind of like what I was saying, it's okay to not know as much about them. You kind of pick up things throughout, like, okay, Derry had some incident where he didn't want to stand up and be a man or whatever the situation is. You kind of guess at their past, and they talk about their mom a lot, and I don't know if they mention a dad kind of thing. So maybe there's situations there, but, at the end of the day, it was like, hey, let's not worry about this. Let's just, worry about trying to scare the hell out of these viewers, or, put them in a bad situation. Yeah. And, it did have, a couple scenes, like I was kind of talking about, that I think are horror related, pulling a cop's head through the roof of the car and then cutting it off. Yeah. And you're slowly, like, at kind of the same, where you don't know much about the brother and sister. You're learning just as much about I just keep calling it the monster, but you're learning about this monster as it goes on too. Like, oh, if he gets, hurt, he eats a head, and, or eats an arm or a limb, whatever it is that he needs, he'll eat it and then regenerate from that. Yeah. And it's like, that's a perfect way of, explaining what's going on. We've touched base in other films where, was it, gosh, I can't remember. Was it Poltergeist? No, it was one where they learned about it in school, The Village, where you learn who the monster is through like a lesson, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then you also have this method where you can learn from experience, almost like what you're seeing.
Yeah, like you're learning it as the characters are experiencing it in the course of the film.
And there's no set of rules. So, like, if you don't line them out at the beginning of the film, you could just make up, oh, yeah, okay, he gets run over, but he can regenerate. You know, it's like,
you
don't have these set rules you have to follow.
So, in that regard, and this will matter more, I guess, when we talk about Jeepers Creepers 2 next time.
Yeah.
But, so you mentioned the scene where he gets run over.
Yeah.
And then they just like back over him and run over him and back over him and run over him. And then it's almost like he comes out of his own body like it was a cocoon or something. And he has the wings and can fly away. I was really confused by that. Like in the moment, it's just like, holy crap, he's invincible. What are they going to do now? But like thinking about it after the fact, why didn't he have wings before? And how did getting run over caught? You know what I mean? Because like I would have expected that he would have like eaten something that had wings.
Yeah.
Or so, you know what? Like I don't really have a good explanation for how that fits into like the monster on the whole.
Yeah, I think that kind of where we were kind of headed was, you know, that's the thing with it. It's, do you have to know that he has wings before? And I think you might, but the question still arises like, okay, why didn't he just fly instead of driving that car?
Exactly. You know? In that truck with the broken exhaust, why didn't he just...
Right. Yeah, just fly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was like some part of evolution or something.
Yeah.
You know, like got beat up enough. It's like, now you got your wings.
Yeah. Yeah. He had to earn them. I also wondered too if like, cause he has like a certain period of time that he can feed or whatever. And so maybe he just had to have consumed enough to get to that point or something. But,
yeah, that's very, very possible. I mean, I think when it comes to this movie, like we're saying, this is definitely not a perfect film. The dialogue was pretty rough. There was actually like a couple funny parts, which I thought were, I guess one specifically, which I thought was relatively interesting. But I mean, just throughout, it's almost like a mystery film. Like just throughout, you're finding more, like they get the call from Giselle explaining like what's going on and how she saw it in a dream and all that. And, you know, which adds the extra layer because, I mean, thankfully they did add that because it did get to the point where you're like, oh, this is just not going to end too well. You know, like this is, it's going to be too short of a film. They threw that in there. Threw the old cat lady in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I did like the scene where the monster was like standing in front of the scarecrow outside the cat lady's house. Yeah. That was just so creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But I like some of the other stuff they did too. Like there was some good, I don't necessarily want to call it action, but there were some good scenes that didn't involve the monster even. Like when Derry is going down and he ends up, falling down that pipe and then he sees that body bag that they had seen the monster dump and he walks over to it and then all of a sudden it like grabs his leg and then he pulls it open and there's like that giant scar down the middle and the guy is trying to talk to him but he can't like form the words and then dies.
Yeah.
So then Derry's freaking out and you're just waiting for the monster to show back up.
Right.
And attack the sister. And then all of a sudden, okay, it's happening. You see the truck. It's coming down the road. She's jumping in the car. She's freaking out. He's still down underneath somewhere. And you don't know what's going to happen. And then it turns out not to be the truck.
Yeah.
And she like breathes a sigh of relief. And then right then Derry like hits the window.
Yeah.
That was just such an intense moment followed by a letdown, followed by a fake jump scare. It was like, well done, sir.
Yeah.
You kept my attention. That was like a really good, really intense thing.
Right.
But I like that the monster didn't come back right then. Like I like that it wasn't the super predictable kids go back. One of them gets stuck. Now they're in trouble and running away from the monster. How will they get away? Like it drew it out beyond that. And it added to the story and it added to sort of that sense of mystery like you were talking about while still allowing the story to move forward afterwards, not just immediately dumping them into, and now we just have to be chased by a monster for an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I think it helps too with the monster, smelling was like his main way. So it's like, okay, well they can't even hide like in this church because he'll smell them and whatever. And, so to talk about the monster a little bit more, he has super black, like he's just covered in like very dark black, and his eyes easily seen because of the contrast.
Yeah.
Like, that was super creepy, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
No, I thought they did a good job on him.
Yeah.
It seemed very like practical effecty, not digital effecty, which I was pleased by.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they didn't really give a lot of like backstory or personality or anything to the monster, which I think kind of made it better, because you weren't like trying to figure out its motivation. It's just like, this is just this evil force that wants to consume and eat people, but it also, there's something about like the fear or the terror that feeds it.
Yeah.
So that is incentivizing it to be extra creepy and not just a straight killing machine. And so again, I like that there was not some half-assed explanation for that. It was just, this is what it is and this is what we're experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But the one piece of personal information you did get about the monster is he seems quite into the song Jeepers Creepers.
He is. Yes.
And I don't quite understand why or how that plays into anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know really why either. Other than it's just playing like an old song that has the word creeper in it, which is a song from 1938, for the record. It was wrote for the movie, I think it was called Going Places.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then I think Disney took it, or Disney started using Jeepers Creepers instead of saying Jesus Christ. It's a blasphemy. But
gotcha.
I don't necessarily get it. It was just like one of those things where it was like, if you hear the song run, which played, like, it worked out pretty well, because you're just like, how are they going to hear the song? Just kind of thinking it's like, just keep the radio off, whatever.
Yeah, right.
But that was it. They heard the radio, heard a remake of the song, and knew they were in danger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally hated the like Jeepers Creepers dance remix that was playing on the radio at one point. I was like, I could really do without that.
Right. At the same time, it's like, why would anyone be, why would that song be on the radio, like on any station?
Yeah, right.
So,
But then again, I mean, that's North Florida for you.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I mean, I would put this. You've talked before about how you have like your list of easy go-to Halloween horror movies.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, it's October, it's getting dark early. This is just kind of like the ambiance I want in the background without having to pay too close attention. This, I think, would be a good one for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a movie you have to think about. Like, just throw it on and watch it. I will touch base on something real quick with the ending. I just have to say, I also appreciate the fact that there was like a 5-minute dialogue of like, no, take me, of this. So the sister is saying that to the monster who has Derry, the brother, and she's like, it was like this big, like, brave moment for her where she's like, take me. And then he was like, psych, not doing it. And still took Derry. Like, I love that. I just think that's like that was just great, because it was just like,
Yeah, like, it was set up for her to have this big hero moment, and then it was just like, yeah, that's not how this works.
See ya. I'm busy, so.
Yeah. And the idea that he is more interested in some people than others for whatever reason is kind of interesting too. But I did have one other scene that I wanted to bring up before we finish, and that's when the creature comes down from the ceiling in the police station and like punctures the cop, and then you see the light shining through the hole in him.
Mm-hmm.
That reminded me of The Quick and the Dead, which is a movie I have not thought about in a long time, but it's a good Western.
Oh, yeah. There's young Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait.
And Gene Hackman.
Wait. Are we starting a Westerns podcast?
I mean, I mean, come on.
I mean, we could.
I'll just say it.
Yeah.
That's my expertise outside of horror movies.
Yeah. If anybody wants that, email us.
Yeah.
Make something happen. But
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yep. We made it through Jeepers Creepers, and
Did.
next week we will be doing the sequel, creatively titled Jeepers Creepers 2.
Jeepers Creepers, get the hell off our podcast.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening. She wanted to go in after him. I wish I had that sound clip to play. Anyway, but I...